Hey, Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good.
I can remember one point in my career when I no longer felt challenged at work. I was stagnant and I hated it. I like to learn and grow. I like to try new things. I love a challenge, but I also love my job. The people were amazing. The organization was great. And so I felt stuck. Thankfully, in my situation, I reached out to a coach and she wisely told me that sometimes life gives us a little break in one area of our lives so we can focus on another. And she encouraged me to reflect on what it would look like to be challenged outside of work. In no time, I had connected with a local nonprofit and found a way to use my skills to support them. And eventually, work shifted and I took on a new role and felt challenged again. But that's not the outcome everyone experiences when they start to feel stagnant. And we lose good people because of it. So how can we create a high-performance culture that benefits not just the organization, but also the individuals in it? That's our discussion today. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. Brett Myles has spent his life investing in people. Brett's professional career has centered around coaching leaders to be better leaders and better people. He spent the last 16 plus years in ministering to the next generation through Pura Church and local church ministry, and started his leadership development company, LeadWell, in 2023. Brett felt moved to step away from ministry to young people and invest in decision makers, leaders, and teams in the marketplace. Though Brett won't be the expert on the work that your company or organization does, he can help diagnose the people things that aren't working and that are creating pain points for leadership and the team culture dynamics. Bad culture is expensive. One way or another, you'll pay for the culture that is created. Brett helps leaders and teams become self-aware people who better know themselves and can thus better lead themselves and then properly lead others in humility and integrity. Brett will help your organization be a place where people want to be by addressing team communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity. Partnering with Brett is an investment in creating healthy culture, healthy employees, healthy teams, and in doing so, growing your influence, impact, and bottom line. Brett, welcome to the show.
Hey, Heather, glad to be here.
I am excited about this conversation. I feel like I always say that because I pick really great guests, but I'm excited about this conversation.
No pressure.
Right? Because we haven't done a lot yet on high performance culture. We've talked a lot about leadership development, people managers, but we haven't really talked about the culture itself and how we create this culture that supports all the other stuff. And so I'm really excited to dive in with you today. Before we get there, I always like to hear in your own words a little bit about your career journey. So how did you get here?
Yeah, great question. If you had asked me in 2023 and before if I would ever start my own business, I would tell you, you don't know anything about me because there's not a chance. I mean, here we are. So I got into the ministry world out of college I worked at a summer camp in college with younger kids. It was like a faith-based camp, sports camp, and felt really called into that. Like, felt really compelled to that kind of work. And so jumped in with a parachurch organization, a nonprofit ministry in Oklahoma City. I did that for 6 years. It's called K-Life. It's affiliated with the camp that I was a part of in Missouri. I grew up in Oklahoma City and did that for 6 years. My best friend from growing up was in Austin, Texas. And he was like, hey, man, they're hiring student pastors at our church. Austin's a really fun town. You're still a single guy. I think you would be challenged. They might even pay you a little bit more money. Would you be interested in coming and like being in the same town again? I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds really fun, actually. So I loved what I was doing in Oklahoma City, but things felt very comfortable and I wasn't really challenged. And so went through the process. I was like, yes, let's do this. And they said yes too. They hired me. And so I moved to Austin started working for a church here in student ministry. I was at one of the campuses of a church called the Austin Stone Community Church. I was at their St. John location for 5 years as like the student guy. And then they felt that they needed a position where somebody was like overseeing all of the student ministry teams. So my second 5 years at that church, I was developing the staff who were developing volunteer leaders and working with students and building relationships with parents. And so I was a little bit removed from the front lines, but was like getting to really invest in our staff and be with adults and help them understand how to lead their people better and be more intentional and more effective in their ministry. So I did that for another 5 years. And then when my wife gave birth to our third kiddo, Micah, in the summer of 2023, there was like a shift that just happened where I was like, oh my gosh, I just felt more responsibility to be more present at home. Like, I wasn't pulled away all the time, but it was enough. And I felt like I needed to probably generate more income than I was able to do at our church. And I didn't know what that meant though. So I felt a restlessness in my role there. I'm going to try to make a really long story short. I gave heads up to my supervisors that like, hey, I think my time is winding down here. I don't know what's next, but I think like this chapter is closing, not for bad reasons. It's just, I think it's coming to an end. I don't want it to get to a bad place. And I sought wise counsel and prayed and just tried to search, like, I know what I'm good at. I know what I enjoy doing, but what does that mean for a job? And applied to all kinds of things I was interested in that seemed like it would challenge me, where my skills could be used, my experience could be put to work. And it was the most crickets you could imagine. Like, there was not an email back. There was not a, hey, thanks for your application. There was like nothing. So I'm like talking to all my friends I'm networked with in Austin at our church who are in the business world. I'm like, hey, is there anything that, and they're like, everybody was like, I don't know of anything, but if something comes across my desk, I'll let you know. And then a random guy on LinkedIn, I had just got back on LinkedIn and didn't know what I was doing. And he reached out and he was like, hey, a friend of mine is looking for somebody like you at a church in Washington, D.C. Are you up for a conversation? I was like, not really, but I guess so. So we get on this Zoom call and he starts talking about this job. And I go, man, I'm really sorry, but I'm not moving my family to Washington, D.C. He goes, well, where are you at in life? He starts talking, we start talking. And he goes, hey man, I never do this, but I think you would be really good at and interested even in what I do full time. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And he's like, I do leadership development. I got certified and trained by a company called Giant out of Oklahoma City. Like, the foundation of it was really faith-based. You don't really see it in the language or in any of the toolkits of the programming, but the guys who started it all, I think, are like-minded and you would really enjoy them. And it's unlike anything I've ever like really been a part of before. And I was like, okay, please say more. He started talking about what it meant for his family and like his ability to be in charge of his own time and like his ability to generate income and thus be more generous and just do more and have more impact in different ways. And so it just felt like this door was like flung wide open. I'm naturally risk averse though. I need to like have the data. I need to know that I'm making a good choice. And in face of all this like risk, we didn't have a savings nest egg at all when my time ended at our church. So I didn't have a lot of runway, but I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. And in my job at the church and developing leaders, like that gave me so much fire. Like, I loved to help people like see light bulbs come on and go, oh, there's a better way to do this. There's a different way to have that conversation. There's another way to think about that. And that was like the thing I just loved the most. And it just filled my sails. And so that's what this was, but it was just going to be like me with organizations and leaders and their teams in the marketplace. And so didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I didn't know, just jumped in, said yes. And then just little by little, it all started to come together. I had a friend who was a business owner, and the first month in, I was showing him some of the tools we use and like how it works. And he just stopped me and he goes, dude, this is exactly what I need. I don't have time really to figure out how to like develop my guys, but I know I need to do that and I want to, and I don't have a process or a program or tools, and I don't have capacity to do it. So like this would be perfect. And so he said yes and brought me in, and we worked for a year together, and it was incredible. And then we're just off to the races. And so anyway, I tried to make that really short, but that's how we got to where we are today. And so we're about at the 2-year mark of having started LeadWell officially. I feel like I learned more and more every single day, which has been pretty fun. But
that is true. Starting a business is the ultimate learning experience, I will say.
Yes.
So you now are working with organizations as a consultant. You said marketplace leaders. Are you working with all types of different organizations? What does that look like?
You name it. Like clients of mine have been private Christian schools. They have been churches, nonprofits, and then all the for-profits you could think of in like literally every industry. It's funny. I had all this encouragement early to like get specific and like niche down and who is this for specifically? And I had a hard time. But then all the doors that kept opening were all of these random opportunities that I didn't feel like I could say no to yet. And so at this point, I don't know if I have something that's real specific, but yeah, it's been across the board. And it's been fun because I feel like I keep learning about different people and different spaces and different industries and how people are impacted by those places. And so that's actually been really fun for me.
Yeah, and you can probably start to see some themes across organizations.
Totally.
Too. There's definitely similarities in all of the different industries.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about high performance cultures specifically,
okay,
because it really is a foundational component of everything else. So as we kind of move into that conversation, tell us how you think about high performance cultures. What does that mean to you? What is it?
Yeah, great question. So I like to tell folks that when you say the word culture and people are like, what does that mean? Culture is like an environment. When you think about like a greenhouse, and if you have a really healthy environment and the environment is right, then healthy things grow. But if the environment is wrong or toxic or such that things die, then things die. And so culture is a lot like that, where you've created this atmosphere, this environment where people can flourish and they can flourish in their role. And so then the organization can flourish. And so when the people are healthy and the process is healthy and effective and efficient, then the performance goes up. There's a tool that I use called the Relational Intelligence Matrix, where we go from, hey, your own individual self-awareness allows you to understand why you do what you do and understand your behavior and why you respond the way that you do or why that you say the things that you say. And so once you can understand that and you see how that can grow and how you can improve those things, then the team dynamic is now different because you are showing up different and you are more aware of how people experience you. And when that happens, then the performance of the team improves, because the dynamic is now different. So if everybody on the team is working to be self-aware and others aware, and they're upgrading some of the behaviors that lead to conflict and lead to putting up walls of self-preservation or whatever, then the dynamic of the group gets really healthy and really fun, and there's joy in your work. And so then like the work just gets better. Like you're able to do more work and do it better and do it more effectively. And so then it becomes really high performing. And I think there's this kind of approach that's, I think is probably it's on its way out. I feel like I see it on its way out because people are becoming more aware it matters how you're treated and what value is communicated to you in the workplace. In the past, it was like, just do your job, be thankful that you're here kind of thing. Like we're paying you to do our job. Just be an adult and show up and do your job. But I think that's changing in a lot of ways. I'm seeing it everywhere. And so I think they were saying in the last few decades that high performing was, are we generating dollars? Is there value for the investors? Are we taking ownership in the market? Are we producing? And it didn't matter what was happening behind the scenes. That was all for the sake of producing. And so people would burn out and there would be all kinds of impropriety in the office. And there's ways that men were treating women and people were just treating it. It was just terrible. It felt, I think for a long time, people felt like they had to put up with it. Maybe because like they were being paid really well and they're like, well, I can't leave. But they would probably call that high performance. Like, and the company from the outside is probably doing well. However, I think this way of looking at high performance is like, no, are you taking care of people such that, yes, you're putting out a great product, but people stay? When people go, how long have you been with such and such company? And you can say, it's been 10 years. And they go, how have you been there that long? And you go, well, I feel so known and seen and valued here. And there's joy in the work. And I believe in the mission and the vision. And we are led really well. Like, it's like, then people don't leave. Why would they leave? And so I think this new take on high performance has to involve the environment. And even students that are coming out of college the last, I feel like, decade and a half are not asking questions like, how much are you paying me? What's my 401k? Like, what are my benefits? The questions are like, what's it like to be here? And what is my boss like? And do you care about my home life? Or what are the demands? And so I think the questions are even changing. And so I think all that to say, I think a high performance culture now has to involve, what is the environment that we're creating? Because if that's really healthy and we also understand how to properly do our work, then we're going to perform at a high level and keep really great people for a long time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it reminds me, right? Like 30, 40 years ago, people would stay at one company for their career. And then we totally saw a shift away from that. I think you still see it some in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, true.
But for the most part, that has been we've stepped away from that approach. And now it's like almost heading back to that. And can you create an environment where people want to stay? Because they're not just staying for the sake of staying like they did 40 years ago.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in my experience with nonprofits, like the thing that tethers those people is like the mission and the vision of the organization. Like they're all bought in. And so some people, I think even in those worlds will put up with some like minor things because they're like, I believe in this so much. Like in other for-profit spaces, you'll have people who are they have a job and they don't believe in it and they don't feel believed in or invested in. So then if they don't believe in the mission and the vision and they don't feel like they have value there from the people around them, then of course they're going to look around and go, why am I here? So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when we think about this high performance culture, you mentioned the environment, you mentioned having that individual leaders, having that awareness of others. What would you say are the ingredients of this high performance culture?
So I think there has to be this like drive for self-awareness. So we use a tool called the 5 Voices. It's a personality assessment, but it's so much more than that. It was created in response to people who started Giant saying, man, we love Myers-Briggs and all that it brings to the table for people and for organizations. But it feels clunky because it's hard to understand how my one of 16 types interacts with all the other types. And so they distilled it down into what's called the 5 Voices. And so I think that helps people know themselves in order to lead themselves. So if you can know yourself, you can lead yourself. If you don't know yourself, then you can't lead yourself through all of your tendencies and through all of the things how people experience you, and you're just walking around oblivious. So if you can know yourself, you can lead yourself. So I think that's why we start there. I mean, if you don't know how you're wired and how you show up, then a lot of this is not going to matter that much. So, and then from there, is the culture that we're creating and is the way that you're leading one of high support and high challenge? So another tool we use, and all the tools that I use that Giant has created are really visual. There's this neurolinguistics to it, where it's if I can see the image, I'm reminded like, oh yeah, this is what that means. So the support challenge matrix is this X and Y axis, and the up and down axis is support. And if we are high support, that's great. But if we are only high support, then we're not holding people accountable. They're not like being pushed. There's no empowerment. There's no opportunity. It's just, hey, we love you cheerleading, which isn't really ideal. And then if you have, obviously low support is bad, low challenge is bad. Low challenge and low support, there's just like abdication of leadership really. But then when you have organizations and cultures that are like just challenge, where we're going to push you, I like to think of my high school baseball coach. Like they use like kind of fear and manipulation and it's my way or the highway, get in line. That's not a healthy culture and that's not healthy leadership. But when you have high support and high challenge, then when you know that the leader who you report to knows you, sees you, values you, is for you, and they've demonstrated that. When they challenge you, when they give feedback, and when they bring some critique, it doesn't feel like you're being called out as much as you're being called up. They see me and they want better for me. And usually those kinds of leaders, the like tone and the tact that they use is like communicates that. And so having high performance cultures, there has to be high support and high challenge, which is a hard dance to walk sometimes. And every person is different. So knowing the people on your team, you can assess, are you going to be prone to lean into high support and challenge be harder for you? Or are you going to be quick to challenge where support is hard for you? And so knowing how to lead each individual person is really important so that you can drive all of your people into this quadrant of being high support and high challenge.
Do you wish you could connect with other nonprofit learning and development leaders? I know what it feels like to want someone to bounce ideas off of and to learn from, someone who really understands you and your work. Imagine if you could have a simple way to meet people in the field, ask questions, and share information. That's why I created the Nonprofit Learning and Development Collective, where nonprofit L&D, talent management, and DEI leaders can connect with each other quickly and easily in a virtual space. When you join this community, you will walk away with a new, diverse, and powerful network and a sounding board for your staff development needs. So if you're ready to exchange ideas and collaborate with your peers, come join the Nonprofit L&D Collective.
Culture is not always an easy thing to influence because it feels a bit abstract. And I love the tools and things that you're talking about, the ingredients and how this works. How do you get there? How do you build that? If there's an environment that maybe you're working with an organization and you're finding them high support, low challenge, or low support, high challenge, like how do you move them across that axis so that you are building this high performance culture?
It has to start with the leader, like whoever's at the top, because they cast a shadow. There's a culture created over the whole from the top. Now, inside of that shadow, leaders underneath that management level person, they can establish a culture for the people under them that can sometimes outshine the broader culture. But if you have a leader who's at the top, who is fighting for the highest possible good of all of the people entrusted to him or her, and they are proactively working on being self-aware, and they are asking for feedback, and they are going, how can I support you better? Where do you feel like you're not being challenged? They're proactively asking those questions. The culture becomes the shadow of the leader. And so if you have a leader who's not doing any of those things, then, and the default is going to be just to work and do your job. And hey, are you getting things in on time? Hey, it's going to be very task oriented. But if the leader is aware of, hey, are my people known, seen, valued? Are they healthy? How are they showing up? What's going on at home? Because you bring your home like to work and you take your work home. Like people don't just turn it off, and to think that people actually do, I think is really naive and really silly. And so it's like, what's happening? Do you know your people? Yes, they know that you're a competent leader. Do they know that you care? Do you know anything about their family? And so if you have a leader who's very conscious of all of that and very aware that those things matter, then you're going to create this, we call it like a culture of liberation, where people feel really free to show up and be themselves. They don't feel a need to put up these walls of self-preservation to self-protect, because the leader has communicated so much like that. I'm for you. You don't have to like put on a face. You can give me feedback. Like I'm open to that. And so what that does, that sets the tone for all the leaders underneath that, the person who's at the top, who's from the top down, right? All that runs downhill. And so then now there's a standard for accountability to go, this is how we do things. And this is what your people should expect from you, because this is what I've established that they can expect from me as the like leader from the top. And again, like a lot of that, like you have to have really consistent rhythms for that feedback, right? You can't just have, an annual review, right? Like the number of people in my life, family, friends, who are like, Just the other day, I had a conversation. Somebody very close to me was like, I was supposed to have my annual review in April, and nobody on my team has had our review yet. So we're all like, are we doing a good job? Because they don't get regular feedback. There's not a rhythm for that. And the person who's leading this team is such the bottleneck that she's overwhelmed that those things are falling through the cracks. And so there has to be this like rhythm that you're committed to for like regular feedback, not just this once a year thing. And then obviously when you have a leader who is able to own their mistakes, like they're able to be vulnerable and go, hey guys, I made the wrong decision. I thought this was the way forward and it wasn't. So we're going to pivot and I'm really sorry. Or when they engage in conflict in a way that feels harsh, they seek that person out to go, hey, I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. Will you forgive me? Like that kind of a leader is going to create raving fans to be like, they were vulnerable. They were humble. It's a person of integrity. Like, yes, like I've never experienced this before. Like it's going to commit people to you. Like they're going to be so invested. And so I think it has to start at the top with, this is how we're going to do this. And because if they don't set the tone, then it's hard for things to be different.
Yeah, I definitely found that to be true as well. The leadership really sets the tone for so many other things. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, though, a couple of times is feedback. And sometimes feedback, high challenge cultures, I can imagine, would produce some conflict in an organization. Have you found that to be true first? And then if so, how can leaders navigate that conflict in a healthy way?
Yeah, no, it is for sure true. And I would say that almost all conflict, the root of it is miscommunication. And so if we can understand this is how we talk to each other and these are the codes by which we communicate, right? Then I think you can set yourself up to succeed here when it comes to conflict, right? So for example, if we're at the end of a project and there are and I'm like, I need to get this thing turned in. But I'm like, I don't know if I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I'm going to go to teammates and I'm going to go, hey, I'm going to communicate. I'm going to transmit. Here's what I'm asking for. I'm going to say, can you give me critical feedback? You're not going to hurt my feelings. What am I missing? What are the holes before this thing is over? I want to make sure we're not missing anything. Now they know, okay, you've invited feedback and you've invited critique actually. And you've told me that you're not going to take it personal. It's related to the project. So I can be honest. And so now they know how to talk to you. But if you just come and go, hey, we're about to turn this thing, I think we're pretty close. Like, I'm excited about wrapping it up. But other people are like, I think there's some problems. They don't necessarily feel freedom to say anything maybe. And the ones who are bold enough or who are just wired that way and bring it to that person without expecting it, there's going to be this like, the wall's going to go up. Hey, whoa, I've thought about everything. So I think when you're able to invite it and go, hey, can you give me some feedback? So when you have a leader who models, like I said, like this, if I've done something to wrong you, or if I've made a poor choice, or if you want to give me like your thoughts on something, like there's an open door, like if that person is inviting that kind of feedback, then that can be kind of part of the culture that's created to go, this is what we do. And so when somebody doesn't do that well, there's a standard for accountability to go, hey, here's why you've had so much conflict with this person. You guys, you're transmitting one thing in how you talk and they're receiving it in a different way. So you guys are going to have to get on the same wavelength. Like you have to understand each other. And maybe that means you use language like, hey, so that I'm clear, can I ask some questions for clarity? Like, so that they know where you're coming from. So I think when it comes to conflict, really honing in on how do you tend to communicate, right? Are you an active, silly things, like I say it's silly, but it's really important. Things like, are you an active listener? How do you know? What are things that you're doing to communicate that you're an active listener? Are you somebody who's like safe? If somebody wants to just go, hey, can I just share these things that I'm like really frustrated about or really scared about or making me anxious? And they know that you're not going to try to fix them, but that you're going to listen. Then you've created a safe space, like where they can communicate and go, okay, I can talk to this person. And so I think there's this, I see it all the time where when you say conflict and immediately people are like, oh, that's bad. The conflict can be really good. Like that's how things improve, like that's where you go, no, this thing got better because we like ran into problems and we had to iron it out and work through it. And then something even more beautiful came out. The illustration of a blacksmith and a forge. It's like he takes the really raw material, the metal, and he gets it so crazy hot and he bangs on it, right? There's friction, there's sparks, it's hot. And what's produced in that, though, really beautiful, shiny, whatever the object might be. And so I think conflict, when we see it as, no, this is a way for me and for us to be stronger and to be better, then I think people are more willing to go, okay, can we untangle this thing together? As opposed to, no, I'm going to pull my end of the rope and the other person's, well, I'm going to pull on my thing. And then the knot gets really tight and it's, well, now we can't really undo it. And so I think when you come in to go, hey, what did you think? What did you hear me say? When there's conflict, then they're like, well, I felt like this happens. Like, whoa, I don't know that you heard me. Like, if I need to own it, I'll own it. But what did you hear me say? And go, well, okay, here, I said that really badly. Forgive me. Let me say it in a different way. And then you get a chance to try again. And so I think being able to come, and again, what the leaders have to model this, like humility and integrity, vulnerability to go, we want to hear each other. We don't all speak the same language all the time. There's a creative voice in the 5 voices universe. And the creative voice is the one that's most misunderstood because they're not thinking from A to B. They're thinking the most innovative, creative, wild ideas, and they're going to bring those, and it's going to come out really clumsy at first. And you're going to have to go, okay, tell me more. Say that again. I want to get to the bottom of this idea you have. There's gold down there, so it requires patience and not just going, I don't know we're not going to do that, right? Where you dismiss those kinds of people, and then they don't share anymore, and they're like, oh, I'm not heard here. So there's all kinds of things that go into that, but conflict isn't bad. It creates growth. It allows us to see things we didn't see before, and it can really knit people together when it's done really well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And really, we can't avoid conflict. And
no, it's everywhere.
Yes, it's if there are people involved, right? There are relationships involved, there's going to be conflict at some point. And so learning how to navigate through that conflict with some of the great topics that you shared can be really helpful.
Yeah. Think about parenting every day. I'm in conflict every day in my own home, and it drives me bananas, right? Or it's, golly, okay, you didn't hear me, I don't think. How do I say this better or different so that we can be on the same page? It's hard to go throughout your day and not have any conflict with any other human unless you're just like laid up on the couch watching K-pop Demon Hunters all day. Then it's okay, you're not going to engage in conflict because you're not doing anything. But when there's people involved, like you said, it usually gets messy and you have to work at it. So,
yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, but that messiness creates something pretty amazing. So, As we think about this high performance culture, creating these teams where the team dynamics are at their best, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel like they can contribute, they want to stay. They're being challenged in all the best ways. They're being supported in all the best ways. You've really given us a lot to think about here today. Any final words of advice as listeners go back into their world? Hit pause on the podcast and they go back to their world. Like, any final words of advice for them?
Yeah, man, I think leadership is not about you. Leadership is about the people that you get to serve and that you get to guide on their journey. We use the language a lot when it comes to leadership of the Sherpa, right? Sherpa it's a people group that is born at elevation. They're the ones who know Mount Everest like the back of their hand. Nobody ascends the top of Mount Everest without a Sherpa. And they know the way up. They know all the pitfalls because they've been there before. They've been to the top so much. And they don't even keep count of how many times they've been there. The success for the Sherpa is, did I get other people to the top successfully? Did I help them navigate and traverse all of the dangers, all of the things they couldn't have known? It's not about them doing it over and over again. And so I think leadership is that way. It's about dying to yourself and helping those entrusted to you to grow and to develop. And when you're able to do that intentionally with the people on your team and in your organization, and you've trained leaders below you how to do that with their people, it becomes really incredible. And it becomes a really dynamic place to be. And so, like, healthy leaders, they are able to help establish healthy teams. But if you're not developing leaders and serving them sacrificially, why would they go do that for their people? Right? If they see it as, I have to get to the top, I have to look out for me, I have to do everything I can to protect myself, then you're going to have a place where nobody feels known and seen and valued and nobody wants to be. And so leadership isn't about you. It's about every day showing up consistently going, okay, how can I fight for the highest possible good of the people around me today? How can I show up and be kind? How can I show up and walk in humility? How can I show up and be confident in my humility? Like, I can be confident and be humble at the same time. How do I walk in integrity? How do I admit when I did things that were wrong and when I hurt somebody or I overstepped? And so James Clear in his book says that you don't rise to the levels of your goals, you fall to the levels of your systems. And I think the way we approach leadership can become a system. This is how we do this. This is how we communicate with one another. These are the ways that we go about building trust. These are the rhythms we establish with our people to make sure they're getting feedback and FaceTime. These are the rhythms we establish with our teams to make sure that they feel like they understand what's happening and they know their role in it and they know how to support one another and collaborate effectively. And so much of leadership is there's a process and a system to it. It's not just off the cuff all the time and however you feel that day. I share this all the time with teams I work with because it doesn't happen that often. There's this tool called the communication code when we talk about effective communication. And one of the code, like the modes, if you will, is celebrate. Hey, when there's been success, when there's been like a win for a person or for people on your team or for the whole organization, are you stopping to celebrate and to give people credit and to recognize people or to recognize teams or to recognize the whole group? Because, and I learned this when I was working with kids back in the summers in college, I had a great leader who shared this with me and I never forgot it. He would say, hey, we are going to be those who celebrate the things that we want to see more of. His whole point was like, hey, if a kid does something really kind, call that out, celebrate it, go crazy about how awesome that is. Because that's going to communicate to that kid like, oh, I should do that again. The praise felt really good and the recognition felt really good. And the other kids are going to go, well, I want that kind of recognition. Okay, I'm going to be kind or whatever it is. And so I think with leaders, it's like, hey, when you notice somebody doing something, especially if it took some courage for them and it took maybe they're out of their element a little bit or they had to put in a little extra work, you noticed that they bit their tongue when somebody had something to say that was harsh and they didn't respond. Man, look for ways that you can celebrate your people and that you can recognize things that's going to help them feel seen and known and valued. It fosters this others awareness. And that is infectious when people are like, man, you really take time to care about us. I feel like you ask good questions. Like that is infectious. And that, again, that creates a culture and environment where healthy things grow. And you get to be a part of that, right? It's so cool to be able to like, man, this thing that was created, like it became way bigger than me, but I got to play a role in it, which was really fun. And again, like I said at the outset, leadership isn't about you. It's about you serving people and helping people get to even the places they didn't think they could get to. That's the win.
Yeah, that's great inspiration for us to take into our week as well. So thank you, Brett. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing all about high performance cultures. And great to learn more.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Heather.
Love Brett's advice. We have to create an environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued, where we support them and celebrate them as they are, and where we can give them feedback and challenge them to be their best. That is the key to high performance culture. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice, share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review. but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.